Let's talk about sending email from a WordPress website. Well, first we got to kind of set some parameters for what we mean by sending email from a WordPress website. So first, I don't mean if you have a link on your website using the ML2 link and somebody clicks on that link and sends email. What that actually does is cause their default email program to be triggered, and then they just compose an email and hit send, and it's their email server, their email client sending the email. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about WordPress itself sending email. And the reason this happens is because the server needs functions to send email. So by default, WordPress is designed to show web pages, show content, things like that. And it does have some functions to send email. So the web server, WordPress, is actually sending the email. The default method that WordPress uses is the PHP mail function. What this basically means is WordPress is built on a programming language called PHP. In the programming language, there is a function or feature or command that actually called mail that actually sends email. So WordPress simply uses this method to actually send email. There are some issues though with using this default method. One, the email kind of, looks like spam. It's coming from a WordPress website, or in effect, your website. Hopefully it has the same domain name that you're using for the different emails, may or may not. But really the key issue that's coming up is the way that email works is an email server, in order for two different email servers to exchange email, they have to actually look up to figure out where they're supposed to send email to. And this uses the DNS, the domain name service, to learn where the friendly name, i.e. the domain name, relates to the IP address, the actual thing that a computer needs to connect to. There's a subset of the DNS records called MX records, which are just short for email exchanger. So it's just a subset. So when an email server wants to send an email, it looks up the MX records for a specific domain and figures out where to send it. So email servers are supposed to do this. On the other hand, websites, they don't do any of this. They just simply send the email. So they still do the lookup, but when the other server sees it, they're like, well, you're not where I think you should be. So this is why a lot of times this email can look like spam and sometimes will be rejected outright. So what's the solution to this? Well, it's basically you use the same protocol that email servers use, which is SMTP, which stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. This is how two email servers would actually communicate back and forth. There are a couple different ways that a WordPress website can use this. One is you can actually set up your WordPress website to use your company email server, and that would allow it to basically hand off the message before it wants to send. So instead of the WordPress website sending it, it actually gives it to your company email server. If you don't have that, or you need another method, you can still use SMTP, but basically you have to set up what's called an email relay. And these are specific servers that just simply send email, but don't hold email like an email server for your company would. It also holds your mailbox where you can actually send that. So both of these are options, but they still use this SMTP protocol. So the WordPress website no longer just sends it using that PHP mail function. It actually hands it off to one of these two things, and then it actually sends it via SMTP. So how do we configure our WordPress website to do this? Well, fortunately, there's a plugin, like there is for everything. And the one I recommend is actually called WP Mail SMTP. So you just install this WordPress plugin. It does have free options. There also are paid options. But it handles a multitude of different email server options and email relay options. So some conclusions. Again, there are many cases where we want our websites to send email. Out of the box, default, WordPress does not send these in a fashion that is usually interpreted correctly by other email servers in the sense of making it look like spam. So we need to do some things to improve that so we can improve our email deliverability. There are WordPress plugins that can help with this using the SMTP protocol. They do need to be configured to connect from your website then to the different email services you're using. But the ultimate result is this does greatly improve the reliability of emails that originate from your WordPress website.